The Rock's dream match against Hollywood Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 is still highly regarded, which has many fans wondering why the Great One never locked up with the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. So let's waste no further time and find out why The Rock never wrestled Shawn Michaels. Through the years, The Rock has discussed dream matches for his career. At one point, The Rock even stated he wanted to wrestle Macho Man Randy Savage. Later in his career, The Rock would mention his wish to have wrestled Sting in his prime, Rey Mysterio, and Shawn Michaels. So why didn't The Rock vs Shawn Michaels match ever happen? Fans are perplexed why the WWF never booked a Rock vs Shawn Michaels match, either during the Attitude Era or in the Ruthless Aggression Era after HBK returned from his back injury. Although there were periods when the two couldn't wrestle, either due to Michaels' absence from his back injury or The Rock's hiatus in Hollywood, there were plenty of other opportunities. The heart of the matter is that not only did The Rock not want to work with Michaels, but he refused to do so. Wrestling rumor has it that Vince McMahon wanted The Rock and Shawn Michaels to meet at WrestleMania 20, but The Rock gave a firm no for an answer. The two would never meet in the ring, other than a segment on SmackDown where Michaels superkicked The Rock. Some believe the superkick is the reason behind their animosity, but it's believed to go much further back. A 2000 interview with Pro Wrestling Torch shed some insight into the situation. Wade Keller asked The Rock, "I don't think Shawn Michaels' name has ever come up, other than when we talked about the Survivor Series. What are your thoughts on him? Was he helpful to you? Was he a hindrance to you? Was he someone you learned from, even his mistakes? Did he set a good example?" The Rock responded, "He was not helpful to me. I never sought his help. I really have nothing to say about Shawn." Is that because if you can't say something good, you don't want to say anything at all? Not necessarily. He was cordial with me, as I was with him. But other than that, he doesn't know me well enough to speak of me, and I don't know him well enough to speak of him. Michaels is regarded as a fabulous athlete, a fabulous performer, and one of the best of his era or generation. If you agree with that to any degree, do you have a desire to work a top program with him if he were able to come back and work a handful of matches? No, I have no desire to work with Shawn. None whatsoever. A 2005 interview with WWE.com suggests no animosity, but a complete refusal to work with Michaels. WWE.com asked The Rock, "If you could wrestle just one more match, who would it be against?" The Rock responded, "A guy I regret not working with, who I grew up with watching, would be a guy like Sting in his prime. I would have loved to have wrestled him in his prime. And on the current roster, I always wanted to work with Rey Mysterio. I'd love to go against him with me as a heel in San Diego. I would love that shit. That would be awesome. He's just one of those gifted guys that can have a great match with anyone." A lot of people on the internet have always said that they would love to have seen The Rock vs Shawn Michaels. Is that a match you would have liked to have had? I was never interested in working with him, to be honest with you. I've known him for a long time. He came in and worked for my family in Hawaii when I was like 13. Him and Marty Jannetty. It was just one of those things. He was always one of those guys that I said hey to, and he said hey. It's no big deal. By one account, the Michaels-Rock rivalry may stem from a 29th August 1999 debut episode of SmackDown where Shawn Michaels superkicked The Rock and The Rock took issue. According to the people's father, Rocky Johnson, Shawn threw the sweet chin music and I guess he kicked him a little too hard. So Dwayne went back in the dressing room and said, "Hey man, you hit me a little too hard. Calm down." But then Michaels got smart with him. Said, "If you can't take it, then you shouldn't be in this business." Next thing you know, he's on the floor and Dwayne is on top of him. In the interview, Rocky Johnson admits he wasn't present when the incident allegedly happened and only heard of it through a story. By most accounts, The Rock's enmity with Shawn Michaels began when Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty worked a show for The Rock's grandmother, Leah Maivia, at Maivia's Polynesian pro wrestling promotion. Michaels allegedly disrespected The Rock's grandmother, and a teenage Dwayne Johnson became enraged, nearly leading to an altercation. Johnson apparently held a grudge for years, hence his refusal to work with Michaels. There may also be resentment from The Rock's early run in the WWF. According to Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley were jealous of Johnson at one point, and tried to persuade Hart to go over Johnson for the Intercontinental Championship. The Excellence of Execution discusses this in his memoir. "I didn't see any need for me to beat Rocky. It wouldn't build any heat for my new heel turn and would only undermine a real talent. I insisted on a DQ finish, which infuriated Hunter. He and Shawn disliked Rocky intensely, and were too myopic to see that Rocky was destined to become one of the all-time great megastars in the history of the business, The Rock. It's likely The Rock was well aware of Michaels and Helmsley's political machinations, and if not, Bret Hart would have smartened him up. This may have played a role in The Rock's refusal to work with Michaels, but The Rock's 2000 interview with Pro Wrestling Torch suggests otherwise. Consider this discussion of DX allegedly sabotaging Chris Jericho's WWE career. Wade Keller asked, "Is it fair to blame the DX group for trying to sabotage Chris Jericho's career out of jealousy? Because he's a threat to some of them or all of them?" Friends of his in WCW are speculating that might be the case. Is there any truth to that? The Rock responded, "I couldn't tell you that. I have no idea. Anyone who really knows me knows that I try not to involve myself in a lot of that political bull. You can't hold talent down. There were times when some were trying to hold down The Rock from ascending to that very top tier, but you just can't do it. True or not, who knows?" Although there appears to have been animosity between the two Hall of Famers, it's believed that they've settled their differences in 2008, when the Maivia family were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Whatever their differences, and whatever the reasons behind them, it kept fans from seeing what could have been one of the greatest matches in WWE history. Well guys, there you have it. The reasons why The Rock never wrestled Shawn Michaels. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.